Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Lost Dogs. Now, Lost Dogs is a graphic novel written and illustrated by Jeff Lemire and published in 2005. Now, when this was first published, I believe only like 700 copies were actually printed. Like, this was Jeff Lemire's first graphic novel, and he only printed a limited number of copies at the time, but in 2012, the graphic novel was republished by Top Shelf Press. Now, Jeff Lemire is perhaps most famous for a comic book series called Sweet Tooth, but he also wrote a graphic novel called The Underwater Welder, which I actually did read, and I did a review on that one a while back, so you could go check out that review I did on that book if you want. And so far, all I've read from Jeff Lemire is The Underwater Welder and this book. I haven't read Sweet Tooth or anything else by him yet. Now, Lost Dogs is a great book, but this is a really, really sad book. Like, don't be reading this expecting an entertaining comic. This is a very depressing story, and this really is an emotionally devastating story. Now, the plot of Lost Dogs is it appears to be set in the late 19th century, and it follows this character who is simply referred to as the Sailor, who is pretty much the definition of a gentle giant. Like, he's pretty much a giant of a man. He's this very, very large man who is also not the most attractive man to look at. But while he is a giant, as I said, he's also what you would call a gentle giant, and he has a wife and daughter, and they have this nice, peaceful life in the rural areas of, I want to say this is England where this is taking place, I'm not sure exactly, but what happens is, in the story, he takes his wife and daughter to this play in the city, and after the play, his daughter wants to see the ships at the docks, and he takes his wife and daughter to there, and then they're attacked, and the people who attack them, despite the fact that he is so large, they beat him nearly to death, and then they kill his daughter and rape his wife, and they dump him into the water. Eventually, these fishermen actually find him in the water, and they take him back to shore, and eventually he meets this old man named Jack, who sees how big he is, and this man, Jack, apparently knows where his wife is, and he's not telling him where his wife is unless the sailor fights for him, and this man, Jack, essentially exploits his large size and his seemingly limited intelligence for his own personal gain, and that's all I want to say about the story. Essentially, because of how desperate he is to see his wife again, he allows himself to be exploited by these really bad people. But once again, that's all I want to say about the plotline of Lost Dogs, but Lost Dogs was an excellent graphic novel, and once again, this is such an emotionally devastating story, and the book is really short too. Like, it's only about, I want to say, like 60, no, it's about 100 pages, but it's really quick. Like, you could read this I read this in about an hour, and that was only because I took a little break reading it. Like, it's a very quick read, and if you get your hands on this, I highly recommend giving this book a read. Now, as I said before, Lost Dogs is such a sad and emotionally devastating story, and this book will definitely make you cry, and once again, it's just a depressing book, and one of the ideas of this book is that despite how big physically the main character is, he's not big enough for the world, and the whole idea of this book is that the world is so big and so cruel that it could just swallow somebody whole, and that's exactly what happens to the main character of this story. He becomes swallowed whole by the world, by the cruelty of society. Now, on the surface, the story might sound very nihilistic, and it is, but there is something at the end that kind of gives you the idea that no matter what, the cruelty of society can't fully break the human spirit, because even by the end of the story, the main character, his spirit is not fully broken. I think one of the things the book is trying to say is that no matter how cruel society is, even though the world can swallow a person whole, it can't swallow a person's soul. Another thing I really liked about this is it's a very simple story, yet there's a lot of emotional complexity to this story, and on the surface the characters might come off as being very two-dimensional, and they kind of are, but at the same time though, you're not really getting any like internal monologues or anything, so of course on the surface they're gonna come off as two-dimensional. Really, a lot of that really comes down to what you make of the characters. And once again, I feel like the characters in this story are very simple, yet there's a lot of emotional complexity to these characters. I also think Jeff Lemire's artwork is actually really interesting, and I'll admit, it's not fully my cup of tea, but it is interesting though, and I do think the artwork does fit the story. But yeah, that was my review on Lost Dogs by Jeff Lemire, and bye.